Welcome back, class. We're going to talk a little about resources and capabilities and how capabilities can transform resources as you move through kind of the production process. And the text defines basically two types of resources. First one is tangible resources, resources that can be readily seen, touched, quantified, such as physical assets, property, plant, equipment, cash. uh, think about think about last time. I don't drink coffee, but again, last time somebody went into Starbucks or went into McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, any of those type places, you're looking at a lot of tangible assets, tangible resources, the building, the machines, the individuals, um, the production process in there that ties all of this together. And then the second part is the intangible resources, resources that are difficult to see, to touch, and to quantify, such as the knowledge and skills of the employees, a company's reputation, and a company's culture. And when it comes to intangible resources, must focus on developing human capital, culture, and reputation. And the reason that you focus on these intangible resources, especially when it comes to building human capital, culture, and reputation, because it helps to guarantee long-term competitive advantage. Um, last time I was in Nashville, I decided I would um, circle in and get something to eat at one of the hamburger joints. Went in, and the intangible, I could see the tangible resources, pretty impressive. Um, but when it came to the intangible resources, it was just the customer service. The people didn't seem to know what they were doing. It was almost like they had just hired these people off the street. Um, and, not only that, but the quality of food was terrible. And it was just not a pleasant experience. But that's what you're looking at, the ability of the intangible resources. So their capability of taking resources and turning them into um, goods and services. And again, you go back to, your factors of production, land, labor, capital. Those are your big three. Technology and entrepreneurship. This outfit, this hamburger joint, definitely lacked the technological process of the production function. And they certainly didn't have anybody that had an entrepreneurial spirit because they really didn't care whether you got anything to eat or not. And when the authors focus on capabilities, it's what the organization can do based on the resources it possesses, what a company can do versus what it owns. And again, when you're talking about capabilities, we're going back, and again, I don't want to think I'm beating a dead horse, but we're going back to human capital, culture, and reputation, because the ability to take resources and maintain that competitive advantage, especially in the long run, is built basically on a really strong company culture. You want to capture the potential value of resources owned, even if you need to bundle, manage, and exploit strategic resources. And that is what, at least you hope, the company that either you're working for now or the company that you would like to work for once you complete your academic career, you hope that they have the ability to understand what it's going to take from a capability perspective to take not only tangible but intangible resources, combine them together, and drive or maximize the value of the strategic management process that's going to allow them to turn inputs through the production function into outputs. And you want those outputs to be valuable because the more valuable the outputs are and the more efficient the production process is, you have a better chance of maximizing profits. And again, think about Southwest. The authors use Southwest constantly in that text because that's what Southwest is good at. They are good at taking their tangible resources and their intangible resources combining them together, and through the ability to maximize the capability of the teams that are working together, they're actually able to drive profits and drive efficiency. You want the management team of the organization, again, that you either work for now, the one that you'd like to work for in the future, to maximize the value to the customers and create advantages over competitors. That's what drives long-term competitive advantage for these organizations. And then the author spent just a few minutes talking about dynamic capabilities. A dynamic capability is a unique ability to create new capabilities by continually updating a firm's array of capabilities to keep pace with changes in the environment. Again, great examples, especially Southwest or especially Costco. Look how Costco, I don't know what their stock price is. At one point it was above $600 a share. I can remember not that long ago, it was like $100 a share. They keep managing, and again, we talked about it, chapter 3. They keep doing an exceptional job of managing not only the general environment, but the competitive environment as they move forward. They're continually updating the capabilities of the company to keep pace with a changing environment. And we've talked about, in the past, flexibility and the ability to change and move forward. And if you're an organization in the marketplace now, for most industries, is extremely dynamic. It is changing constantly. And if you don't have that capability to move and to change with the environment, it's going to be extremely difficult for a company to ensure that they're going to have that long-term competitive advantage. And then kind of down, I guess probably in the middle of the text, the authors ask the question, is resource-based theory old news? The role of resources in shaping success and failure has been discussed for centuries, and that's true. It's been, you had Alfred North Whitehead, you had Mary Parker Follett, that were talking about the role of resources, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. An array of resources and capabilities that fuels enduring success, not any one resource alone. And that's what's driving resource-based theory. They're looking at combining, and that's where they talk about an array of resources and capabilities that's going to fuel success. You want it to be a long-term success and keep that long-term competitive advantage and hopefully drive products for the company. And then they talk about distinctive competence, and Philip Selznick in the 40s and 50s, so this is, a little dated. He had a set of activities that an organization performs, especially well. Creates competitive advantage. It's, comparative, especially his was driven by comparative activities to rivals. And you remember, we've talked in the past about referent measurement. So when you're trying to measure, when you want to measure success, you need a reference point. And that's, we talked about referent measurement, and now, Philip Selznick in his, I guess he wrote a series of books, he's talking about comparative advantage and comparing them to your rivals. And the impact of both companies and, the individuals. So that's what drives it. You want to impact, both your company and your individuals. One of the things that, come to mind for me is the payment integrity team that I managed, that I directed when I was at Blue Cross Blue Shield. We had a distinctive, competitive advantage over all of the other health plans in that Buffalo market, because we not only, maximize the capital of our individuals, but we also use vendors to come in and they need supplement or complement the internal resources we had. So through training and education and additional credentialing, we were maximizing human capital And then additional for areas that we could not find that expertise or competence, we were bringing, I call them vendors, but the majority of them are consultants. We would bring them in and they would help us increase, again, go back to your old micro notes, what a company tries to do on the production process when you're bringing labor on, you're trying to maximize that marginal product of labor. And you will continue to bring on individuals until the marginal revenue product of labor equals the marginal factor cost of that labor. And that's what the consultants were helping us do in Buffalo, was maximizing the marginal product of our internal resources. And then they talked just a few minutes about resource-based theory and its importance. One thing, it builds on past ideas. It may not be anything that's revolutionary, but if you think about resource-based theory, it's building on some of the academics and some of the operational operational wizards from the past, and they are taking and they are bundling, and on resource-based theory, kind of bundling and rebranding some of these concepts. And one of the other things that resource-based theory does is it has a complete framework for analyzing organizations. That's one of its big advantages. And it's been developed, it's been refined, and it's being developed and refined and driven by research and evidence, especially through the academic journals. And from there, the authors move into the marketing mix. And again, we're going to get into kind of some little snappy acronyms here in a minute, but the marketing mix, it's leveraging resources and capabilities to create goods and services, is important. But consumers must still be convinced to do what? You've got to convince somebody to buy it. It doesn't matter how great a job you do, or how the resources and you leverage them through your internal capabilities to generate goods and services. You've got to have somebody to buy it, or you're never going to make a profit. And so I can't remember what textbook I'd used in the past, but this individual thought he was an entrepreneur, and he wanted to build his company based on making these little garden gnomes, the little garden doodads that you see, in people's gardens and things. And he was extremely, extremely efficient. He had that production process down, and he could generate those at a very low cost. But lo and behold, there was no market for them. He couldn't sell them, couldn't market them. Nobody wanted to buy them. Yeah, he'd sell a few here and there. He could go to some craft shows and sell a few here and there, but nobody really wanted to buy it. And actually, that reminds me, there's a French movie, Amélie, it's based on this story about a garden gnome, and the garden gnome, she takes it and takes pictures of the gnome, the Eiffel Tower and all around, and sends postcards back to, I think it was her father, sends postcards, or grandfather one, I don't remember, sends postcards back, and it looked like this gnome was on vacation traveling all around France. And it would sign, the postcard like, this gnome had written this postcard. But anyway, this guy thought there was this huge market for gnomes, and he was extremely efficient. But at the end of the day, you've got to have that marketing mix, or you're not going to generate a profit. And so when we get into the marketing mix, we're going to talk about the 4 P's of marketing. The 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. Don't you just love how academics do this? That companies use to offer customers a cohort and a coherent and persuasive message, not to think, but to provide a strong alignment, or not to trick, but they want to provide a strong alignment. They're not like P.T. Barnum, and his famous quote, Barnum and Bailey Circus. But P.T. Barnum always said, "There's a sucker born every minute," and a lot of the acts in the circus were, sleight of hand, trickery. So uh, that's why a lot of textbooks quote P.T. Barnum when it comes to marketing. And remember, don't get the 4 P's of marketing mixed up with. I was watching some show today, this morning on the news, and one of the commercials, uh, the guy comes on, he says, "Hello, I'm Jonathan with Colonial Penn, and I'm going to tell you about the 3 P's of buying life insurance." And he goes on through his spiel, and his 3 P's are price, price, price. So don't get the 4 P's of marketing mixed up with the 3 P's of Jonathan and Colonial Penn. But it just shows how everybody has kind of a catchphrase, a way to kind of make them special or differentiate their products from others. So whether it's the 4 P's of marketing or the 3 P's from Colonial Penn, they've all got that little catchy phrase that at least they hope helps you remember the goods and services that they're going to sell. Product, what company sells to consumers. It's goods and services that a company sells to consumers. And again, rather than saying, product, economists, especially microeconomics, will always refer to it. You hardly ever hear them say product. It's usually goods and services. So that's where you have product. It's the goods and services that a company produces. It's those goods and services that comes out of the black box, where the inputs come in on one end of the black box. It spins through the production process. Goods and services, product come out the other end. Price, the amount companies charge for their goods and services. And remember, price, go back to your profit formula, revenue minus cost. On both the revenue component and the cost component, there is a price component. Revenue, price of the goods and services you sell, times the number of units you sell. On the cost side, again, price times quantity, price times quantity. So that's why price is important. Drives, the revenue side of the house. And Southwest, again, their prices have continued to creep up. I'm not sure they have the price competitive advantage that they used to, but they're still making a lot of money. So they've had this, and I think they've been able to have this price creep because of the brand loyalty. They have a huge following with Southwest. Place, a physical purchase point as well as a distribution channel. Let me think. Krispy Kreme, great example. Krispy Kreme, they have physical locations, and they're slick looking physical locations. And they're usually located where they're going to get a lot of traffic. And Krispy Kreme, not only there, but they have a distribution channel that you will see them in grocery stores, usually at the front, kind of toward the checkout, or over in the sweets section, kind of over the bakery area. But a lot of grocery stores, sell Krispy Kreme. You see them in Raceway gas stations. You see them at Love's truck stops, Pilot, Flying J. Those areas where if you're traveling, especially on a trip, not even you need to stop and get gas and then use the restroom or something, but you've got to have something to eat and drink, and they're just right there for you when you get there. The other thing that Krispy Kreme does really well is they sell to clubs and schools to help them raise profits or help them raise funds for activities. And if you've ever been into a Krispy Kreme, it wasn't last time I was in Nashville. I went to one of the Krispy Kremes, and there was the lady came in, and I forget what school she said she was with, but she had ordered, I think, 15 dozen donuts, and they had them all stacked in the box in some plastic bags for her, and they carried them out the car for her. But she's coming in. So again, there's a distribution channel. Think of around campuses. Think of maybe not so much around Fisk campus, but around most college campus, you've got food joints and just a huge array of service type organizations that are wanting to sell you things. Uh, Southwest, not only do they have the location in the airport where you're going to board the plane and fly out, but think of the last time you went in the airport. Uh, you probably passed by that little kiosk at Southwest had set up, and they were trying to get people to sign up for the credit cards. And they say sign up the credit card, we'll give you 50,000 bonus miles. Hey, they get a lot of people sign up for those credit cards. But again, it's being driven by place. They are really good about having their merchandise or having their goods and services at a place where customers are going to get a lot of foot traffic. And then you've got promotion. The communications used to market a product, including advertising, public relations, and other forms of direct and indirect selling. Sometimes it's some of the best promotion. It's clever, it's shocking, it's advertising. They sell brand and they sell loyalty. Again, think about Southwest and the way they sell the frequent flyer miles and their credit cards. And there was a mall when we lived in San Diego. It's a little north of town, but to this day, I couldn't tell you the name of the mall, but I knew exactly where it was because all of the stores were painted pastel colors, purples, reds, and greens. And anybody in San Diego, all you had to do was mention that multicolored mall, and everybody knew exactly what you were talking about and knew exactly how to get there. And then we're going to spend just a few minutes here. Let me see. Yeah, spend a few minutes talking about intellectual properties. And intellectual properties are creations of the mind, such as inventions, artistic products, and symbols. The inability of competitors to imitate a strategic resource is key to leveraging the resource to achieve long-term competitive advantage. And that's why intellectual properties are extremely important, is how you try to secure the inability of your competitors to duplicate. Companies are clever in imitating resources. Think about the Chinese. Chinese have a reputation of duplicating. Think of all of the bootleg CDs, music CDs, movie CDs that come out of the Orient or out of the Pacific Rim. For years in the Pacific Rim, they may not be that creative, but they have a reputation of taking an intellectual property and improving on it. From an engineering perspective, if they can get the idea, they can generally improve upon the operational efficiency or the production efficiency. Resources that involve intellectual property reduces or eliminates the risk of somebody stealing it, at least in theory of somebody stealing it. If it's an intellectual property, it's valuable, rare, non-substitutable. Think about what we talked about when we started this chapter. Strategic resources. If it doesn't meet all these three criteria, it can be bundled to make a strategic resource. Again, places like Southwest do a really good job of bundling resources. Intellectual properties can include patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets. Can use legal means or simply conceal info from competitors. That's typically, you think about trade secrets, secret recipes, chemical formulas. When I was in graduate school, I worked as a bartender at that was a place close to campus in Columbus, and it was kind of, burgers, ribs, barbecue, salads, a few salads. kind of had a sports bar atmosphere. So had a lot of people in there on especially Saturdays and Sundays and at nights watching, ball games and things, watching sporting events. And they had some great salad dressings. They had a ranch dressing that had it was a different taste to it. They had kind of a sweet and sour. They had a hot dressing that they would make a wilted salad out of. And the individual that owned the restaurant, and this was like a mom and pop chain, but owned this restaurant, he actually created all the recipes himself. He had a honey mustard recipe that's what people actually came there for, was that honey mustard recipe or the honey mustard dressing on the salad. And he kept his recipes locked in a safe in his office. And when it came time to replenish the supply of dressing that he needed for the restaurant, he would wait until the restaurant closed at night, got everybody out, and he would stay there at night making the dressings himself because he didn't want anybody else to know what that recipe was. So he was concealing his trade secrets. And let's talk firstly about a few minutes about patents. And patent is a legal decree that protects inventions from direct imitation for a limited time period. Patent office in the United States, I think it's 20 years from the date the application is filed. And I think that's for most. I think there may be some wiggle room on some, but that's pretty much the general timeline we're looking at. It's from the U.S. Patent and Trade Office. So you'll hear people talk about the USPTO, U.S. Patent and Trade Office. Invention is new, non-obvious, and useful. So that's one thing it has to be. And you can have legal action if a competitor or person infringes on that product or on that patent. That's when you see them start talking about, liability, lawsuits. Patents drive huge profits and can potentially drive huge profits. May not be an easy process to secure a patent. And I've never gone through the patent process myself, but I've heard some individuals complain about the process being a little onerous. And they give some examples in the text about slinky. And I don't know how many of you know what a slinky is, but it's that coil of metal that you put it on a step and you start the forward motion and it will take and it will go down, a set of steps. They've sold millions of those, made a small fortune out of those. And then they talk about the dude that did the Java jacket. You go into Starbucks and you keep from burning your hand. You've got that little paper jacket that you put on your hot chocolate, your coffee, your tea to keep from burning your hands. And again, whoever invented that has just made a mint from it. And it's a really simple concept. Secondarily, you've got trademarks. And I think the text said they are for 6 years in duration and they're renewable. I forget how many times you could renew them, but if you want to know if something's trademarked, look for that on the somewhere on the descriptor. Let's say it's a can of Coke. Somewhere on that can of Coke, you're going to see a capital R with a circle around it, and that's the trade. That shows it's been trademarked. It's a phrase, picture, name, or symbol used to identify a particular organization or product. Allows the organizations to stand out. It builds market identity. It builds brand loyalty. And, they talk in the text about, McDonald's, Golden Arches. I mean, you're talking about something that stands out. And, you talk about the Golden Arches and everybody talks about it. Everybody knows what you're talking about. If you've ever been to Southern California, and I guess they branched out some from Southern California, you've got that In-N-Out burger. That's a symbol that everybody in Southern California knows. You've got Nike, the swoosh thing on Nike. You've got Apple. You've got the sign with the apple with the bite out of it. And it helps rising companies carve out a niche. So trademarks are going to help these rival companies compete with the outfits like McDonald's and Nike and Apple. And I'm probably going to mispronounce this one, but it's Louboutins. Anyway, whoever designed these shoes, these really expensive women's shoes, they're the ones that have the red soles on the bottom. When you see women walking down the street, you automatically know whether they are by this design or not, because it gave that designer the opportunity to get into the women's clothing market, a very small designer, but it's extremely profitable, and it's all driven by these shoes with the red soles on. Uh, and and it's one that I hadn't thought about, but they gave an example in the text about trademarks and said it can be confusing and cause a dilemma with a unique trademark. I think it was a pharmaceutical company had their trademark for a few years as ISIS, and when they started having trouble with the Middle East with ISIS, this I think again pharmaceutical company in the text they changed their they changed their trademark in a hurry. Think about college and school trademarks, royalties. Think about the royalties from just clothing. College and school trademarks. And you've got counterfeit clothing items. So that's what they're trying to maintain or trying to stop is the counterfeit clothing items with trademarks, especially in college and schools. And of course, I went to the Ohio State University. To me, it was just always OSU or Ohio State. But I hadn't been there in graduate school, probably the first day I was there, I said something to one of the professors about, OSU, and he said, look, you're going to learn in a hurry. It's not OSU, it's the Ohio State University. And in June of 2022, Ohio State was successful in the word "the." They have a trademark on the word "the" now. So it is the Ohio State, and it is trademarked. The third one is copyrights. It's copyrights last, I think it said 70 years after the death of the individual that generated the material that's copywritten. And with trademarks, it was an R with a circle around it. With a trademark, it's capital C with a circle around it. And it provides exclusive rights to the creators of original artistic works, such as books, movies, songs, screenplays, can be sold or licensed. I think it was Michael Jackson that bought all of the Beatles songs. And piracy is a huge issue with music and movies, theft of trademark and copyrighted material. And again, goes back to the Orient, especially China, when it comes to bootlegged CDs and DVDs. And then lastly, we're talking about trade secrets, formulas, practices, designs that are central to companies' business that remain unknown to competitors. Protected by law from theft, once revealed or once it's out of the bag, it's no longer a trade secret. Most companies rely on silence and privacy for protection. Again, the place I worked in graduate school, that guy kept, his secret locked in a safe, and nobody was going to see that recipe. KFC has legendary, the level of 11 herbs and spices of the finger-licking good KFC. And they keep that mystique in place because surrounding that 11 herbs and spices, there is no single supplier supplying all of the components of that 11 herbs and spices. And when it comes to trade secrets, it's not only knowing the components, but you have to know the ratios of how it's combined in that recipe. And they make a comment in the text about Dr. Pepper is the original soft drink. It came out 1 year before Coke. Most restaurants anymore, depending on how good you are with Google, most restaurants anymore, you can find supposedly the recipes for a lot of your favorite dishes that you can get from restaurants. Now, whether they are the exact recipe, sometimes you get them and you make them and they're not, they're really close, but they're not the exact recipe. So there always seem to be missing a little something. And um, with that, we're going to stop. And when we come back in a few minutes, we're going to talk about value chains.